All right. I'm Paige, I'm an alcoholic, and thank you guys. And I just want to say first and foremost, thank you so much to the committee. I mean, this has been an absolutely incredible roundup. I don't know about you, but like I could feel the power, and there's something magical that happens. Well, it happens in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's happening this weekend. And these things, even though the experience is magical, that does not happen by magic. It happens off the backs of hard-working volunteers who put this thing together. So again, thank you. I gotta wheel in and say some words and wear a nice little blazer that is very uncomfortable. But it really has been the volunteers. So thank you so much for doing an incredible job with an amazing roundup. And yes. And I also got to thank Jen. She's been hosting me, and oh goodness, it takes a lot of patience to host me, because I'm like, can we go bird watching? And she's like, there's a sewage pipe. I'm like, I'm in, you know. And we are looking at like, oh, look at that green teal, like, and we are learning birds. We're having a great time. So again, wonderful host. And thank you to the other speakers, like everyone who's spoken on a panel, those who have spoken before me, and I know that those who will speak after me have just done an incredible job. Like it has been an incredible weekend. And you know, there's something I know that long-timers love more than anything else. And it is when newcomers say, "You've been sober longer than I've been alive." I know it's their favorite. And so in the spirit of that, and because I don't think he's here at the moment, so I might be able to get away with it, it is especially an honor and a privilege for me to be speaking with Peter M. I've heard his message before, and please make sure you come back for the keynote. He is an incredible messenger of Alcoholics Anonymous. And his sobriety date, June 23rd of 1988, was actually the day that I was born. You too! Birthday buddy! Yeah! But yeah, and my my sobriety date, if that's of interest, is November 17th, 2009, and it's a privilege to be here with you guys today. And what I felt called to today was a format of sharing my experience, strength, and hope that is known as a big book bounce around. And if you're like, girl, I have never heard of a big book bounce around before, that's because I made it up. So if you'll indulge me, and if you don't worry about it. All of these bounce arounds are consensual. You don't got to bounce if you don't want to bounce. But if you'll indulge me, what I felt called to do was to share my experience, strength, and hope through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And where I felt called was to talk upon the topic of loneliness. Loneliness is not limited to alcoholics. Alcoholics, we don't have the market cornered on loneliness. But what I have found is that is something that we treat here in Alcoholics Anonymous. So if you have your book, you're bouncing around. If you don't have it, don't worry, I'm going to do the reading. But where I feel called to jump into it is on page 1, which is a pretty good page to start. And it says, I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol. And this is in Bill Wilson's story. And what is notable about that is this is the first time we are seeing Bill Wilson actively and intentionally using alcohol to treat that spiritual malady, to treat that sense of loneliness. Now, using alcohol to treat loneliness, again, does not make me an alcoholic. But I don't know about you, I had a misunderstanding of what it meant to be lonely. See, I came here and I thought my loneliness was a sense of separateness from people. I needed to be around people. And I know nobody that's in early recovery desperately wants to hop into a relationship to treat their loneliness. That's not a thing we do. Oh, I can't relate. We'll talk about it. But I thought the loneliness had everything to do with a sense of separateness from you. But I know that cannot be true, because how often do I treat my loneliness with isolating? And I know that cannot be true, because I don't know about you guys, but for somebody like me, we could get me to BC Place and fill the stadium, and I have felt absolutely, utterly lonely and alone. And you see, I don't know about you, but I have felt absolutely, utterly lonely and alone in a room of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you're here at the North Shore Roundup and you're feeling that way today and in this moment, what I want you to know is that I am glad you're here. I care that you're here, and I want us to be able to help you. So please let us help you find the freedom that we have found. But I'll tell you, I have felt absolutely, utterly lonely and alone in a relationship. And I don't know about you, but I have felt absolutely, utterly lonely and alone in the middle of an act of intimacy. And see, loneliness has nothing to do with a sense of separateness from you. But what I come to realize is that my loneliness is a sense of separateness from a power beyond myself. And I was just over a year sober, and I had broken up with my, now I want to call him a boyfriend, but I don't think that's an accurate description. What we were was a codependent, alcohol-fueled, mutually assured destruction hostage situation in a dumpster that was on fire, that was careening off a cliff, but I had convinced myself it was a loving relationship. In fact, it was even common law, because getting married requires paperwork, and I'm not functional enough for that. And we had broken up. You know, and that was one of those, man, if we're broken up, like, I don't know if I can be sober. I don't know if I can do it. And we broke up right before Christmas. Oh, you know that warm blanket of self-pity that turns into a noose? You know that one? Ooh, I was having my little snuggle party. And thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. We were having marathon meetings over the holidays, and I didn't have my family back in my life, and that's where I went. I went to these marathon meetings, and I really heard myself. You know what I mean? Like, I met people who were going through the same thing at the same time, and I didn't feel quite so alone. But there was a French-Canadian gentleman who was more eloquent than I will ever be, and he came into the room, and he spoke about the difference between feeling lonely and being alone. And he said that feeling of being alone is the soul not knowing where it belongs. But the feeling of being alone, that true loneliness, is that look in somebody's eyes. You live, you die, they don't care. And in that moment, I was transported in my memory back to, I was living in a drug house in Lethbridge, Alberta. And I had a significant suicide attempt to end my life. And I remember that same man that I was absolutely heartbroken. He came and he found me, and he left me so that he could continue to do what he was doing. And I do not say that to throw him under the bus. I say that because that is the power of this illness. You see, I want to be Florence Nightingale. You know what I mean? I want to come and I want to save the day. But my illness will take me to places I don't want to go, and to do things I don't want to do, and to betray values that meant everything to somebody like me. So I promise you that I am not throwing him under the bus. But that is the nature of this illness. And what I have come to find is that when I am in Alcoholics Anonymous, I am never alone. And at the surface level, when I talk about that, at the surface level, what I mean is, man, we have a worldwide fellowship. Heck, the world's coming to you, you know? Woo! Be here in July. It'll be great. But deeper than that we get to treat that profound sense of emptiness and loneliness. And what is available in Alcoholics Anonymous is far more than just don't drink, and that was not something that I was capable of doing. It is a freedom and a peace and a joy beyond anything I could have ever imagined. But I should probably talk about alcoholism for a little bit. So let's bounce. Let's bounce all the way to a vision for you. And so where we're going to go is page 151, a vision for you. It says, for most normal folks, that's not me, drinking means conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. It means release from care, boredom, and worry. It is joyous intimacy with friends and a feeling that life is good. But not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. And see, I don't know about you, but let me tell you what happens to me when I take a drink. You see, I take a drink, and there is something that happens to me that does not ever happen to a non-alcoholic person. Now, that first thing that happens is I take a drink and I experience, you guys know what I'm talking about? I take a drink and I experience that sense of ease and comfort, that relief, that release. That emptiness and the loneliness in the depth of my soul. Man, that gets healed. The screaming that's coming from deep inside, I kind of hope you don't, but that quiets down. I'm comfortably numb and I can be okay in my own skin. Man, it was everything that I was looking for. Normal people don't experience that. They don't take a drink and experience a solution for life. But I'll be honest with you, if that was the only thing that was abnormal about me as an alcoholic, I would not be here. I'd be out there doing that because it was effective. It worked. But you see, there is something else that is abnormal about my reaction to alcohol. It goes on to say, but not so with us in those last days of heavy drinking. The old pleasures were gone. They were but memories. Never could we recapture the great moments of the past. There was an insistent yearning to enjoy life as we once did, and a heartbreaking obsession that some new miracle of control would enable us to do it. There was always one more attempt and one more failure. And I don't know about you, but I take that drink and I get that effect, that moment of, and something inside of me awakens. There is a beast inside of me that awakens, and it tells me more. And the more that I drink, the louder that more gets. And see, I don't know about you, but I'm the sort of alcoholic. I take a drink and that drink takes me. I take a drink and that first drink demands a second. And my second drink insists on 4. And that fourth drink will not relent until I've had 8. And my 8th drink is screaming at me until I've had 16. And so on and so forth. You see, I start drinking and I get thirstier. And I promise you that does not happen to me with any other beverage. Like a couple years ago, my stomach stopped handling coffee, and I share that with you because I want you to feel bad for me because, I'll miss it. And so I had to switch to tea. So I start my mornings with prayer, I start my mornings with meditation, and I start my mornings with a cup of Earl Grey tea. And not once in my life have I ever gone on a 3-day Earl Grey tea bender. Never happened. Not once have I had that cup of tea and slammed it back another and another and another, and then scrounged around in the pantry for a box of chamomile, ripped it open and snorted it because it's got to be the same. I just have a tea, So I've got this abnormal reaction to alcohol that does not seem to happen to non-alcoholics. It goes on to say the less people tolerated us, the more we withdrew from society, from life itself, as we became subjects of capital K, capital A, King Alcohol, shivering denizens of his mad realm. The chilling vapor that is loneliness settled down. It thickened, ever becoming blacker. And so what happens to me is I start to drink and I can't control the amount that I take. And what happens to me is I drink myself into lines that I said I would never cross. I drink myself into consequences that I never want. I drink myself into losses. I lose my shoes, I lose my pants, I lose my dignity, I lose my self-respect, I lose my hopes, I lose my goals, I lose my dreams, I lose the ability to look myself in the mirror. I lose all sense of dignity and respect. And I scrape myself up, and I'm going to make it classy for this talk, at the bathroom floor. The joke is I'm normally behind a dumpster. Like a lady, I scrape myself up off the bathroom floor, and I am disgusted with myself. I hate who I am. I hate who I've become. I can't look myself in the mirror. And I say with everything that is in me, I never want to drink again. And in those moments of absolute desperation, I meant it. I meant it. And King Alcohol, this mad ruler, King Alcohol's power is not that once I start to drink, I cross these lines that I said I would never cross. That is a part of King Alcohol's power. But what makes me this shivering denizen, this helpless peasant in my own life, subject to the whims of this mad king, this mad ruler, is that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt I do not want to drink again. And King Alcohol takes me back again and again and again to that first drink, despite the fact that it is ruining my life, despite the fact that I am tearing the structures of friends, family, everything that meant everything to me. I'm tearing it down, and it's not enough. And that chilling vapor that is loneliness settles down because I'm becoming somebody I don't want to be. I'm doing things that I don't want to do, and I am desperate to stay sober, and I can't stay sober. It says some of us sought out sordid places hoping to find understanding, companionship, and approval. Momentarily we did. Then would come oblivion and the awful awakening to face the hideous four horsemen: terror, bewilderment, frustration, and despair. And I want to talk about those horsemen for a minute. Terror is not simply anxiety. Terror is that fear that comes from the depth of your stomach, that grips you around the chest. Man, I can't face the day. That is terror. The bewilderment is I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm doing it again and again. I am frustrated with who I am, and I'm beginning to awaken to the sense of hopelessness of my predicament. That is the despair. It goes on to say unhappy drinkers who read this page will understand. Does it sound a little familiar? Ugh, that's not good news. And it says now and then, a serious drinker being dry at the moment says, I don't miss it at all. Feel better, work better, having a better time. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be sober. I'll take 24 and pass it on. You guys know? Just happy to be here. Happy to be sober. As ex-problem drinkers, we smile at such a sally. And a sally, there's that idea that a sally is like a sudden rushing forth of troops. See, I'm putting everything and anything that I can put between me and the first drink, and it doesn't work. My best defense against the first drink leaves me defenseless. All the willpower that I have to muster, all the knowledge that I have, all the desire that I have, all the fear that I have, all the consequences that I have, all the love that I have, is not enough to keep somebody like me sober. It says our friend is like a boy whistling in the dark. To keep up his spirits, he fools himself. Inwardly, he would give anything to take half a dozen drinks. That's a six-pack. Just want to throw that out because I'm not always good with numbers. I do math based on vibes, you know? But that's 6. To take half a dozen drinks and get away with them. It says he will presently try the old game again. And that is a step 1 proposition. You see, step 1 is not that I can never, ever safely drink again. That's a part of it. But the first step proposition is that I can and will never, ever safely drink again, and I will. I will drink again. The allergy of the body means that there will never be a time that I can drink again, but the obsession of the mind means that if my illness is untreated, a relapse is inevitable. And is imminent for an alcoholic of my type. That means it's coming faster than I always think it will. I always think I have more time, and it is right around the corner. It says he will presently try the old game again, for he isn't happy about his sobriety. And I can tell you in early sobriety, I would come to conferences like this and they would have panels. Like we had a panel on emotional sobriety, and I thought that was for the nerds. I've become a nerd. I really enjoy like you write enough inventory, you get a penchant for stationery, let me tell you, you know. I love my highlighters, I love my pens. I am a nerd through and through. But I thought like that's for the nerds. Emotional sobriety, okay. But you see, emotional sobriety is not A+, extra credit, extra special sobriety. Emotional sobriety is a prerequisite for an alcoholic of my type to stay sober. It is a prerequisite, which leaves the question, how do I get there? And that is the sole purpose of the 12 steps. The sole purpose of the 12 steps is to bring about a spiritual experience, a spiritual awakening, that fourth dimension of existence, and that is emotional sobriety. And it says, he cannot picture life without alcohol. Someday he will be unable to imagine life either with alcohol or without it. Then he will know loneliness such as few do. He will be at the jumping off place. He will wish for the end. And there is a desperate place of loneliness that an alcoholic can find themselves in, where I need to stay sober, and I want to stay sober, and I have to stay sober, but I cannot stay sober. That is the jumping off place. And only in Alcoholics Anonymous is that a good place to be. Nowhere else. Nowhere else. If you show up and you're like, man, I am beaten, I am broken, I am hopeless, I am helpless, I am at the end of myself. And only here are we like, oh boy, that's great news. Oh, amazing. Let's get you a book. Let's get you into the work. Off we go, you know? It is only in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so let's talk about that jumping off place. So if you're bouncing around with me, it's okay if you're not. Let's pop over to page 59. And on page 59 and how it works. It says, half measures availed us nothing. And goodness gracious, we talk about that a whole lot. Half measures. And we kind of joke about it, you know, like half measures. Ha, ha, ha. But what does that mean? That means anything less than a spiritual awakening that I grow and maintain. And I will drink again. That is what that means. And it's rude because I really think I should get something for something. You know what I mean? I'm not expecting to get all of it, but I think if I do like half, I should at least get a quarter. You know what I'm saying? But again, I'm math based on vibes. All right. And it says, we stood at the turning point. And this precipice, a precipice is the edge of the cliff. This is a turning point, and this is the turning point for my entire life. And you see what alcoholism is like for me? It is like that there is a monster that is chasing me in the woods. And that monster is the inevitability of that first drink. It is the obsession of the mind that is on me. And I've tried to hide from it and it finds me. And I tried to hide from it and it finds me. And so I know I start running, and I'm running with everything that I got. And every single time it closes in on me and it takes a swipe and I drink again. And I scrape myself up and I start running. And it closes in on me and it gets me and it swipes me and I drink again. And I pull myself up and I start running because I can't keep doing this. And I can see it, I can hear it, and it's closing in on me. The monster that is my alcoholism. And I know I can't outrun it. And I'm tripping over logs, I'm tripping over branches, and man, it's not working. And I run to the edge of it. I run out into a clearing and I run to the edge of the cliff. And I look behind me and I see the inevitability of the first drink barreling down. And I look over the edge of that cliff. And what do I see? I see the cloud of unknowing. And yes, I borrowed that from an anonymous 14th century author. But I look over the edge of the cliff and I can't see anything. There's this cloud of unknowing. I can't see. But what I hear are your voices that say, jump, please take that leap of faith. We promise it will be okay. Take that leap. And in that moment, in that third step decision, man, I see the step one proposition that I'm going to relapse, I'm going to drink again. It's barreling down. And I look over the edge of the cliff and I see that you guys, I hear that you guys have had an experience that I've not had. And I don't know what the steps are going to look like. I don't know what my life is going to look like. And I am absolutely terrified, and I take that leap of faith. On page 59, it says we ask, and any time in this book it says we ask that as a prayer. Y'all know there is a sneaky little prayer and how it works? We read it at every meeting. There's one right there. God, creator, higher power, spirit of the universe, I ask your protection and care with complete abandon. And that third step is a decision to take that leap. And that's what we do. And how do I take that leap? Because I'm somebody that you got to spell it out real clear for a drunk like me. How do I take that leap of faith? I pick up the pen, I pick up the paper, and I begin to write my inventory. And I begin to see the truth about who I am and the things inside of me that are blocking me from this power. I begin to have a look and see the truth about my resentment, see the truth about my fears, and see the truth about how I behave in my romantic and intimate relationships. And then I dive into the fifth step. And so let's talk about those fifth step promises. You don't have to if you don't want, but I'm going to because they're pretty rad. So, that's my opinion, but they're pretty rad. So on page 75, it gives us the directions on how we do a fifth step. It says we pocket our pride and go to it. How do I do a fifth step? I do it. And it says illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. And I love the idea of God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe as light. This is a metaphor that I see throughout this book, God as light. And the most incredible thing about this power is light is this idea that light is not simply what I see. And of course we see light, we turn on the lights, there they are, there's the light. But light is also the way in which I see. Bear with me with that. So if we were to turn off all the lights in this room, the whole room would change. And yet nothing in the room has changed. We turn the lights back on, everything in this room has changed. And yet nothing in this room has changed. And for those of us who have taken the fourth step and taken the fifth step, you guys know everything changes. And yet nothing has changed. Bear with me with this. Anyone who's ever done a fourth step and a fifth step, childhood get better? Childhood didn't change. Family get better? Family didn't change. The jerks in traffic start driving a little better? Didn't change. But how I see them changed. And that's what gets to happen. And you see, in the fifth step, what am I doing? I'm letting that light in. See, there's two ways to look at the word admitting. I'm gonna say something that I probably shouldn't, but it's coming out of my mouth. Off we go. There's two ways to look at the word admitting. The first is a bit of a confession. I've got to confess to you. Share with, like I stole your car, I slept with your husband, and I peed on your carpet. A confession. And if you're wondering, I would absolutely never. It was linoleum. But there's another way to look at the word admit. And let's say we were going to a Canucks game or a Lions game, and we would get a ticket, and on that ticket it would say admit one. And in the fifth step, what I'm doing is not simply confessing, but I'm also letting in, to let in that light, that power, which is God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe, in another human being. And it says, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. And I don't know about you, but for me, my experience is those things that I wanted to keep to myself, those things that I didn't want to tell another human being, they grow in the dark. We were joking before the meeting about are you going to need tissues? And I was like, no, we just stuffed those feelings. I'm kidding, that's not healthy. But that's how I lived my life. I would stuff it down and it would grow and feel bigger and it would feel louder than it really was. But you see, when I let that light in, I can see it for exactly what it is. And those things that I never wanted to tell another human being, I could tell you freely if it would be helpful. That is a freedom that is available to each and every one of us here in Alcoholics Anonymous. And it says, once we have taken this step, the fifth step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. Anyone here see the step on the wall and think, oh boy, after I do that, I bet I'll be delighted? I can assure you that is not what I expected to have happen. I was like, oh, I'm afraid of the fifth step. Why am I afraid of the fifth step? I'm afraid that if I show you who I really am, you will reject me and abandon me, and it will confirm the worst things that I think about myself are true. But here's my experience. I take that fifth step, and I have shared many fifth steps. I become a part of the human race. I begin to experience true humility. I'm no better than you. I'm no worse than you. That we are shoulder to shoulder upon this common journey. And I'm reliant upon a power beyond myself. It says we can look the world in the eye. And I don't know about you guys, but let me tell you what my life was like when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was not looking anyone in the eye. In fact, I was intimately acquainted with the square of floor that was in front of me. You guys know what that's like? Because I felt like the biggest piece of garbage that ever lived. But now I can look the world in the eye because I'm experiencing humility. No better than you, no worse than you, that we are all equal. It says we can be alone at perfect peace and ease. And this is how I know loneliness has nothing to do with my sense of connection with you, but everything to do with a sense of connection to a power beyond myself. Because what has happened between those moments where I felt absolutely radically lonely and alone, and those moments where I can now be alone at perfect peace and ease? I took a course of action. I began to clear away the stuff inside of me that was blocking me from this power. That is what happened. And what a miracle it is. It says, our fears fall from us. And the most incredible thing about my fears falling from me is I know that I didn't do it. It happens to me, and that is Alcoholics Anonymous in my experience. You see, in my experience, Alcoholics Anonymous is not like climbing the corporate ladder of success, even though I've got a blazer. It is not me doing better, being better, climbing this thing. What I've found is that Alcoholics Anonymous is me taking a course of action that I am absolutely convinced could not possibly help somebody like me. And a change happens to me. In fact, here's my experience. My experience is that Alcoholics Anonymous is an outpouring of more and more of myself to the unconditional love that is God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe. And I know that to be true because when I got here, I thought, to be honest, when I got here, if you're like, what's your problem? I would have told you it was him. You got to fix him. He's the real issue. If you could get him under control. And then I got a little awareness that I might have a problem. Shocker. What is your problem? Well, it's alcohol. And you guys do that spiritual jujitsu and you flip it around, and my problem is not alcohol. My problem is the obsession of the mind that takes me back again and again to the first drink, despite the fact that it is ruining my life. And what is fueling that is this conscious sense of separateness from a power beyond myself. And we talk about that in the bedevilments in step 2. And you see, I can't overcome those on my own power. And in step 3, we have a look at my selfishness, my self-centeredness, and I can't overcome self with self. And I can't do it. In the resentments, I can't overcome my resentments on my own power. In fears, I can't overcome my fears on my own power. My relationship contact, man, I can't be who I need to be on my own power. When I go to 6 and 7, man, I can't overcome my defects of character. I just cannot do it on my own power. But every time I come up to where I cannot, when I come up to the end of myself, when I come to that place of loneliness, that's where God meets me. That is where grace is. When I cannot do it anymore, I am given a course of action to allow this power to work in my life and do for me that which I could not do for myself. And you see, I'm a big believer that I do not deserve to be sober. That sobriety is a gift. Now, we've got some big book nerds. And Tony, I know, big book nerds. You might be like, listen. It says a price had to be paid. What do you mean it's a gift? See, the price that I paid to receive the gift is destruction of self-centeredness, and little did I know that was the gift all along. And I know it's Easter weekend, so this isn't the perfect metaphor for it, but Alcoholics Anonymous, sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous is a little like Christmas morning. And deeper than that, emotional sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous is like Christmas morning. And imagine that Christmas morning where it's a little too early, to be awake, so it is dark, but that tree is lit. There is that glow. There is the tinsel and the bells and the balls, and it is beautifully, beautifully decorated. And underneath that tree, there is a gift. And that gift has been wrapped with the most incredible, beautiful paper. And it is not like how I do wrapping, actually really precisely well wrapped. And it has got the most beautiful bow. And what does it say? Well, there's a little name tag on that gift. And it's got your name on it. Your name on it. And it's already there. It's already done. The only thing that is asked of me is to awaken and to go down those steps. Not up those steps, but down those steps to receive the gift that was available to me the whole time. It goes on to say, our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. And that is a powerful moment, because when I got here, I had the idea that this God, this Creator, this higher power was an over there conception that didn't like me very much and didn't want anything to do with me. But it becomes near. The nearness of my Creator. I begin to have an experience. In fact, it says we may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience, and that is important. Because I cannot stay well on an idea. I've tried. I cannot stay well on a belief. I have tried. What I need is an experience. Now, bear with me. You know those days we've all had, where you need a drink? You know what I mean? It has been on you all day, and I just need a drink. And imagine you pull up to the bar and you sit down at the bar. And you go to order a drink. And instead of the bartender pouring you a drink, what the bartender does is explains the effects of alcohol. You see, when you take a drink of alcohol, it produces this enzymes in the liver, and they get metabolized and produce an intoxicating effect. I can't stay well on that. I need the experience of a drink. You guys know what I mean? I can't stay well on the idea of a drink. I need the experience, and it's just like that with Alcoholics Anonymous. I cannot stay well on the experience of this, or on the idea of this power. I need to stay well on an experience of this power. And here's my experience as well. Is there anyone here in the audience today that has ever drank like this? Where we go and we get a glass. I've lost some of you already. And right? Ooh, who's drinking with glasses? High bottoms. I'm just kidding. And I'm not going to pour a drink because I just know I'll spill. So when we pour the alcohol into the glass and we set it down, and then maybe we get some ice and we put some ice in the glass and we stir it and we have a sip. And we put it down, and we start talking and socializing, and the ice begins to melt. Anyone drink like that? No! And in fact, I know I annoyed all of you. You're like, oh, we all know what it's like to be around drinkers, and it's like, girl, that is alcohol abuse. Get it in ya. But what happens is I come to Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's how I want to do Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to sip Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to take my time, and I wonder why I'm not getting the experience. Man, in my experience, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but in my experience, I had to go after this thing. And when I go after this thing, I get the experience. I may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now I begin to have an experience, and I needed one of those. I can't stay well on an idea. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. It doesn't come by wishing or wanting. It comes with this course of action. And it says we feel that we are on the capital B, capital H, broad highway, walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. Hand in hand. Again, this is not an over there idea of a power. This is an experience, and I'm going to point out it is the broad highway, not the broad vacation destination. You see, this thing is a way of life. And I'll be honest with you guys, I want to have crock-pot sobriety. You know what I mean? I want to set it and forget it. But it turns out I'm an alcoholic that I got to have stir-fry sobriety. I got to be up in there working it every day. And I'll be honest, I'm not much of a cook. I microwave is what I do. Really grateful for the gift basket of snacks, by the way, committee. Thank you. Oh, that's how I live. And you see, I could not stay well on one drink. Anyone here ever have a drink stay well on one? Oh, that was enough. I'm good. No, and I can't stay well on one experience. And you don't have to, but I've got to continue to grow and to seek and to have these experiences. And you see, I'm not walking alone. I'm not moving alone on the spiritual journey. I'm walking hand in hand. And that's the thing is, you see, whenever I'm afraid to do something, an Alcoholics Anonymous or not an Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't have to do it. I just got to get me out of the way and let this power flow through me. But now, step 5 promises I can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Now let's pop over to chapter 7, working with others. Page 89. It says practical experience. And I want to point out practical experience. This isn't an idea. This is the experience, not just of the first 100 members, but it's the practical experience of those of us who have recovered from the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And it says that shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking. And that's what I need. I need immunity from drinking, because if I drink again, man, it is awful. I do things I don't want to do. I hurt people I don't want to hurt. I destroy lives I don't want to destroy. I break trust I don't want to break. Man, I need immunity from drinking. And if I want that, what do I have to do? It says as intensive, intensive work with other alcoholics. I always tell my sponsees, if you're not a little inconvenienced, you don't got enough sponsees. Like, you can have hobbies, but I got to be a little inconvenienced. You know what I'm saying? And it says it works. It works when other activities fail. When nothing else is working in my life, I get to carry this message to those who are dying and suffering in the way that I was dying, in the way that I was suffering. And it says, this is our 12th suggestion. I will point out we don't have alternative suggestions. If you're like, I don't want those. Do we have a gluten-free option? Don't you worry. I promise the 12 steps gluten-free. They're celiac friendly. They're lactose friendly. We got you. So it says, this is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message. The message of what it means to be an alcoholic, to have the obsession of the mind, the allergy of the body, the solution that we have, which is a spiritual awakening, and how I get from that hopeless state in step 1 to the hope, that recovered state in step 12, is these 12 steps is directed out of this book. Carry this message to other alcoholics. You can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. And you know, sometimes we talk about in Alcoholics Anonymous, you got to do it for yourself. And I can't tell you what your experience is meant to be, but I will tell you, I did not do Alcoholics Anonymous for myself. And I'm a big believer my motives don't matter as much as my actions dictate. But why I came into Alcoholics Anonymous is second to why I am here. And I did not get sober for myself. By the way, this is a surprise. I didn't know this. You know, it came to me. I got sober so that I could help others. That wasn't my motivation when I got here. I wasn't jazzercised about it as a proposition. Jazzercised, woo! But I got sober so that I could help others. That has been my marching orders. And this is why. Because you can secure their confidence when others fail. There is magic that happens in Alcoholics Anonymous. The worst things that I have ever done, the worst things that have ever happened to me, the depth of my pain, the depth of my shame, it gets radically transformed into gifts and to blessings that I get to use to help another human being, to be a small part of their miracle, to watch the light come on in their eyes. It says, remember that they are very ill. And I want to talk about illness for a moment. It is not that we are bad. It feels like that when I get here. I feel like I am the most wretched soul that ever lived. But I am up against an illness over which I could not have any power. And it says life will take on new meaning. I don't know about you, but for me, life was meaningless. To watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish. To see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends. This is an experience you must not miss. That is the most incredible thing. Not only does that sense of loneliness that was pervasive my entire life dissipate, but I get to be a small part of the miracle of that happening in the lives of others. This is an experience you must not miss. We know you will not want to miss it. Frequent contact with newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. Although I will say when I got here, and if you're new, that's going to be the bright spot of my life? Hanging out with you guys? But I promise it has given my life more meaning, more purpose, more direction than I could have ever imagined. There's a peace and a serenity. And I'll wrap up with this. Although, what's the greatest lie ever told in Alcoholics Anonymous? I'll wrap up with this. You guys know. Just one more thing. Biggest lie we've ever told. It's akin to the lie of, how's it going? Fine. I'm fine. I'm dying on the inside, but I don't want you to ask too many questions. Fine. So page 100. Both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. And I'm a big believer that it is not progress, not perfection. It is spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Because it is not about the new car, the new job, the new relationship, the new house, the new things. None of that could keep somebody like me sober. It is how am I progressing spiritually. But we get to walk this path shoulder to shoulder. If you persist, remarkable things will happen. When we look back, we realize the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. And you see, when I am on the edge of the cliff in that third step, and I'm looking down and I can't see past that cloud of unknowing, but I hear you. I hear you saying, jump, jump, it'll be okay, take that leap of faith. I don't know who's going to catch me. I don't know what's going to be on the other side, but I take that leap. And what I come to find is who catches me is God. And I land safely and securely in God's hands. And to make it simple, how do I get myself out of my hands, which is a dumpster fire, and put myself in the hands of a loving power? These 12 steps is a way of life like my life depends on it, because it does. And I'll tell this quick story. When my niece, I have a niece and a nephew, and neither one of them have ever seen me drink. And then when they were toddlers, they did this thing that toddlers do, which is toddle. Alcoholics and toddlers, we toddle. And they would do this thing where they would climb up on the edge of the sofa. They would both do it. That was a little bit too high. And they would go, Auntie Paige, catch. And I'd have to go, whoa, don't drop the toddler, right? And they were able to take that leap of faith again and again and again. And I would reflect upon why. And the truth of the matter is that they have never been dropped. And I have had life happen to me in Alcoholics Anonymous. Not all of, but some of the most painful things that have ever happened to me in my life have happened sober in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that I have never been dropped. And it says, follow the dictates. Man, we don't like dictates. Follow the actions of the 12 steps of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. And I get to go from that place of hopelessness, that place of emptiness, to that place of loneliness, to where I am no longer alone. More important than that, I get to see that loneliness vanish in the lives of others. I get to be a small part of that miracle. I get to experience a power that is working in our lives today. And it is not contingent on anything that is happening outside of myself. It is contingent upon the actions that I continue to take to build a relationship with this power. And if you have not had the experience yet, if you are staring down the edge of the cliff and alcoholism is barreling down towards you, what I want you to know is please take that leap of faith. Let us help you. It does not take long to get well. It does not take long to recover in Alcoholics Anonymous. And our very lives depend on helping you. So thank you for being the bright spot of my life. Thank you.